I think it was probably kind of midway through, I think, when you start to kind of feel the change. You've got a bit more you've got that kind of basic kind of understanding from your role as a community support worker, and then you kind of start to build on that knowledge at university. You start to, when you start to get into law and stuff like that. So it kind of, that first year, that foundational year of uni, you're starting to, this is all really new, and it's, and then in the second year, you kind of take that, things move up a gear in terms of getting that deeper understanding of stuff. And then you start applying that to then your practice, and that's when you start to feel, actually, I'm starting to understand things in a different way. I'm starting to think about things a different way.
I feel like my identity during the apprenticeship almost stayed the same, because I was trying to be a social worker, and then all of a sudden uni's over, you go and do graduation, you get this big certificate, and you get your social work licence, and it's like, wow, okay, now I am actually a social worker. The transition between being a newly qualified social worker going into the ASYE year was big, and it was hard, and it was overwhelming. And although I felt very confident, I've just graduated, wow, I'm a social worker, I'm excited and proud, the reality was, you're now practicing as a social worker, and it's a big responsibility. I had days when I questioned, have I done the right thing? Am I going to be able to do it? And then I had days when I was like, I'm actually doing something I've just worked really, really hard for, and I'm making a difference, I'm making a change, and you feel proud in that moment, but that doesn't come quickly. I was quite overwhelmed for, I'd say, the 3 to 6 month period. That was when I felt kind of most vulnerable in the new role.
I think for me it was at the start, I reflected on this at the start, for me it was quite a seamless process. It was quite easy because I'd co-worked a lot of cases in the team that I was going in. So I already knew the team, I already felt confident in people that I could speak to. I already had a sort of cases that I was on. So because of that, for me, it felt quite a natural progression. It wasn't, it didn't feel like I was jumping into something brand new. So yeah, I found that actually probably the easiest part of the ASYE, actually transitioning into a new team, but that was because I was fortunate enough to know most of the people in the team, and already to have built those relationships.
I think I'm still adjusting to that. It's strange having the title there and seeing my name as the main person of contact for hospitals and midwives and schools. It's a real change not having to check in with somebody. In the support role I did before the degree, I would have to say to the social worker, is it okay if I do this, or shall I fill this form in, or can I do a referral here? So I'm having to really talk to myself, like I don't need to go and check with the manager or a social worker. I can do things without having to do that. So that's a really big challenge and a difference for me.
I found the transition from being a youth worker to an apprentice the biggest, because I definitely didn't hold things like child in need plans, went to less strategy meetings, that kind of thing. So I was definitely getting more experience and definitely more complex cases. So I found that a big jump. And then going from an apprentice to an ASYE, I felt like that was a less big jump, because I'd already built up a lot of confidence, I got more experience. So by the time that came, I was excited just to have my own cases then and just get on with it. Still really supported in all of them, but yeah, I was just more excited to get on with it now.
Use your time wisely. Make sure that you plan if you've got assignments due, lots of reading. At the beginning it can feel like, why do I need to do this? But as it goes on and things do ramp up, you really do need to make sure you manage your time really well. Make sure you use the tutors and your practice educators, because they are a fountain of knowledge. If you're stuck on anything, they can guide you in the right direction. And essentially that's what they're there for. And the library. Use the library.
I think coming on to the apprenticeship degree, in that when I very first got told I'd made it and it was going to happen, the start date got delayed because of COVID. Unfortunately, that all came around. But the biggest challenge for me, and what I had most kind of self-doubt about, was the academic side of things, because I do feel quite confident with the face-to-face people type side of the work that we do. The academic side of it was the hardest part, and that's what I doubted myself with for a long time. It didn't help because of the restrictions that were in place initially. Certainly for the first year, everything was online, and we lacked that people time together, the informal chit chats. It was really difficult, and I doubted myself for a long time because of that. And I think if I could rewind, it's okay to doubt myself, but it wasn't as bad as I'd made it out to be. Like, it all turned out to be okay, but in the moment, because it was all very new, I'd never been to uni before, never knew what to expect, and I certainly didn't expect to be doing it during COVID, when life just changed from how we'd known it. So I think I'd look back at myself and say, take a breath, ride with it, better days will come. That's how I feel.
Yeah.
Okay, hindsight bias is always a good thing, because you always get things right when you kind of really look at them from, the before and after perspective. Yes, definitely there could be things that I could have done better. I could have been better prepared in terms of the challenges that I was going to experience, in terms of, kind of the struggle between managing that work-life balance. I probably would have needed to be more prepared for that, and also I think I would have needed to be, other than just the psychological aspect of it, I think there were more challenges in terms of balancing that your academic work with your day-to-day work. Yeah, it did create a bit of stress. I think I would tell myself to be more prepared and be ready.
Yeah. So I think I would use that time, that protected time. And if you've got it booked in, try your best to keep it in, because that would have broke up some of those crazy stages when you've got everything due. So definitely using that. I think one thing that I did, and I've said to ASYEs that are coming in, is anything that you're doing with a different professional, just ask for feedback, because then you've already gathered it. And I found that really easy, just to drop an email to someone and say, can you just give me a bit of feedback on how I did, and then I can just use that and I can go straight in my portfolio. I think I would also have considered how I shared it with families, because I think sometimes you use that title ASYE and actually they don't really understand what that means. And so I think I would maybe have explained to families that I am in my first year, so it means I do have a mentor, because I think sometimes it came up and it was like sometimes question maybe.
Particularly with my reflective vlogs, to make sure that I do them throughout the weeks rather than wait till the end, because it's definitely more time consuming when you do it that way. So I wish I'd done them more weekly than monthly. Also with my practice educator meetings, I really enjoyed them. So yeah, making the most of them to really take notes with you, and it's a really good time for reflection and guidance, to be honest, because we used to talk about my assignments sometimes, how could I include practice in it. So I really benefited from them. I really liked it.
Brilliant.
And also on uni days, to literally prioritise it as a uni day. Don't do any work afterwards, like keep it as protected time.
Transitioning from community support worker to a newly qualified social worker. During the apprenticeship degree, you get so much help from your practice educator, your uni tutor, everybody on your cohort, even everybody in your team here at LCC knows you're on the degree. So there's certain bits of or casework that you can help people out with, but just collectively, everybody knows you're on this journey. It's going to last for 3 years. Then all of a sudden, these 3 years have come and gone, and you're graduated, and you're over onto the ASYE. Part of me, I'll be honest, I was a little bit mardy to start off with, that we had a 12-month course to do on top of 3 years already. I was a little bit like, why does it need to be 12 months? I've just done 3 years. And I did feel like at the moment it felt a little bit overkill, and I just wanted, because I was eager and ready to get rocking and rolling, I just wanted that kind of freedom and autonomy to go off and be a worker that I've just spent all this time becoming. But the reality is, once those more complex casework comes and the more challenging people that we work with, or the greater level of risk, it's a lot, and it's a big transition when you don't do that day to day to then this is your now new job. And the year actually flies by. I got over my Mardy after a little while, and it just flies by, and I was incredibly fortunate to have the PMA that I did. His support was just invaluable from the off. I've got a fantastic team manager, and I'm in a really good team. So that helped hugely with that additional pressures of the ASYE. Because you're under the assumption that once you've done the apprenticeship degree, yay, like you get a little bit of a break from learning, but actually it's a different type of learning. It's more relevant to your actual casework, in line with what your role is within the team that you're in. So
making sure that I'm spending enough time with my family, as well as keeping on top of the learning.
Okay.
That balance can be tricky, but you just need to remind yourself that it's not forever. You've got a deadline date, so I think as long as you plan in time to do your work and time to spend with your family, that balance can work.
What I think was the most challenging part about my apprenticeship was to get that uni work-life balance right, because I was not prepared at the amount of things that I would have had to readjust in terms of kind of maybe my social life, the time it was going to take away from my family, the time needed to do research and reading and doing assignments. I think, that's quite challenging.
I think the change in responsibility, so actually seeing my name when it's written next to social worker on meeting minutes and things like for the police or schools, actually having my name at the bottom of the paperwork has been quite daunting at times, and I think that's definitely the most sort of challenging thing for me.
So far I think it's because I've been in the same team where I did my apprenticeship. New opportunities coming up now throughout the ASY is a bit more difficult, because I got loads of opportunities during my apprenticeship year. So now it's just trying to find different things and try new things and get experience maybe from a bit other kind of teams as well.
Because you've been in your team a long time, haven't you?
Yeah, so I started off as a youth worker in the team, then to an apprentice student, and now as a qualified. So
In the same team as well.
yeah.
I think for me the most challenging has been just caseloads, and when things sort of go a bit crazy in a case, you just have to focus on that, and that means everything else is forgotten. And for me, I like to try and remain quite organised and be able to be as consistent for my families, and I think when something happens in one of them and then everything, you have to just focus on that. You know, ASYE goes to the back burner and then you've got to catch up. So I think that's probably been the most challenging, is sort of juggling everything and trying not to drop it.
So my practice educator was invaluable, not just with the academic side of things and going through the different pathways, but also making sure that my well-being and my resilience was okay. that was really, really important. And then afterwards, my practice mentor assessor and my line manager, they've both been really, really supportive. So yeah, I think understanding, make sure that you're open and honest with the people that are there to support you, because essentially if they don't know, they can't help. Things do get hard. It's not an easy journey, but essentially that's what they're there to do as well, to support you through that.
I think without the support from my practice educator, from my managers in my college, my university lecturers, I think I would have struggled. I did get significant support and kind of the good working relationships I had with all my support network really helped to help me get through the 3-year course, because I don't think without that kind of right support from the relevant professional, I might probably have struggled, probably quit in between at some point when things became heavy. It was always good to kind of debrief with my support network, and yeah, that helped a lot.
Yeah, so we went through a lot during the 3 years of the apprenticeship degree anyway. Just as the local authority went through the restructure. The teams we were in before became very different teams. It was all just a lot. So that came with its own kind of pressures and stresses. And then alongside taking on the apprenticeship degree, COVID came and happened. So there was a lot to go on with. But I think that consistently having good team members was really helpful. The cohort of apprenticeship was amazing. We all kind of felt like we were chucked in at the deep end, and we rallied and just helped each other out. That was big. I think I was really fortunate enough to go on the degree with two of my colleagues from the old team that I also considered to be my friends, so that was a huge support. And I think LCC in general offer a lot. We had lots of support from our practice educators, our line managers or team leaders, whoever they were at the time, and you get your uni tutors. They were really good as well, so you kind of get a wraparound level of support from different aspects of what you're trying to do day to day. And I'm incredibly fortunate for the kind of family and friend network that I've got. It was a difficult 3 years, I'm not going to lie. We had COVID, had a baby, my mum became unwell, and to think back now, I think how on earth did I ride through that? And I did, because of who I had along the way. That was a big thing for me. And I'm incredibly proud to look back and say we did it. Despite all of those challenges, we got there, and here we are.
Yeah, so my manager was has been supportive from day one. I changed managers sort of halfway through, but both were fantastic, and understanding, you know, that the caseloads can impact on ASYE, so gave me that time. You know, I think as long as you communicate where you're at and what you're trying, you know, if you've got things on, then it was always fine, and they were always considerate of the things I had going on. My mentor was fantastic and provided me so much advice and support and experience, and I was really fortunate with who I got. And I think that combination of manager and mentor worked really, really well for me. I'm one of those people that just sort of keep calm, carry on with things. But I think more recently, with my mentor anyway, I've managed to, what she would always say to me, you know, if you need me, you can call me, you know, drop me a text if you need, outside of supervisions. And I never did, and it wasn't because I didn't feel that she was there. It was just, you know, we spoke once a month towards the end. There was lots of opportunity, you know, she attended observations. So we were always in touch. So I never needed to seek her out outside of that, because actually I felt there was so much support and it was there. I mean, there was a couple of ASYEs that sort of in different teams that I got on with, and we would catch up and make sure we were, you know, on the right tracks and stuff. So using people like that, because it does feel, in comparison to being a student, it feels like a little bit like you're on your own with it at times when you're trying to get your work done and no one else has got your caseload, and it's a bit tricky. So I think I reached out to some people in my year and cohort to sort of make sure that, you know, we're all on the right track and give each other advice, which was really good.
So I started working for Leicestershire County Council over 10 years ago now in a business support admin role, and just happened to be based in one of the what was Sure Start centres. and it was watching the support workers doing their jobs, and I sort of thought, oh, I really fancy that, and mentioned that in one of my supervisions, my APR, I think it was, with the manager at the time, and she really kindly went to her manager, and they agreed for me to have a day out of my job a week to go and shadow the support workers to give me that experience. And from that, I was able to apply for the support worker role. I went into the support and assessment worker role. And then I was encouraged by my manager at the time to apply for the degree apprenticeship, because she felt that the work I did could lend itself to being the social worker role. So over the last 10 years, it wasn't a pathway that was planned before that. It's something that's kind of developed, but without my manager's support in Leicestershire County Council, people allowing me to take time out of work to go and try the roles, and to go to the apprenticeship, to have that time out for uni, and now I'm in my ASYE year. I'm still with the same manager, who is incredibly supportive, and I've got a fantastic team who encourage me all the time. Without them behind me, there's no way I'd be doing this today. So I would say thank you to Leicestershire County Council for their openness and development schemes, and to my direct team. They've been fantastic.
Anxious, excited, proud.
What I was feeling anxious. I was also feeling excited at the same time, because that was going to make me go to the next stage. I was feeling apprehensive in a way. I was feeling like overwhelmed, because I felt, how am I going to get all these things going in my life together? Yes, so those were kind of the emotions that I did feel and experience before starting the apprenticeship program.
I think anxious about whether I'd be able to, to perform in terms of, what was asked, be able to keep up with the workload, and as well as working and stuff. So yeah, definitely anxious initially. Excited, I suppose. Excited to do something, new. We were, I suppose, only the second cohort as well. So it was, kind of like not many people had gone through it before. There's only one cohort before us that had not finished. So it was like, how's it going to be? What's the course going to be like? Etc. And it was kind of exciting to do something really different.
At the start of the ASYE, I was feeling so proud of myself. I never thought I'd have a degree. I've been late coming into social work and working with children, so just incredibly proud of completing the degree, and going through graduation was a massive thing for me. But also apprehensive, excited but apprehensive about taking that responsibility on.
Yeah, at the beginning of the ASYE year, I was feeling quite nervous, but excited and really motivated.
Yeah, I think in terms of the way the apprenticeship is structured, I think, you've already got a basic, because you've been a CSW, you've already got that kind of basic understanding of stuff. And I think because, you're writing reflective logs as part of your uni stuff, your reflection is I look back from my first year of writing my reflective logs when I was, in my portfolio. Okay. I looked at those, and then when I was in my third year, and couldn't believe the difference in terms of my reflection. What I'd written in my first year was very basic and very surface level, and then by the third year I was writing reflective logs, and it was much more in depth, and taking into account lots more different things. But I didn't see that kind of change in myself at the time until I looked back at it. So I think when you do the apprenticeship, you're so much more set up for the ASYE than people that have just done like the uni, the route and they've not had the experience and stuff, because it stands you in
goes
really
with it.
good stead in terms of developing your practice, because you've already got that.
Well, definitely, without a doubt. I think I am better prepared for the ASYE program-based post-qualification. So, because without that underlying academic input, it would have been more complicated to kind of really go through the ASYE process.
I think knowing what I'm going into and learning about theories and methods and toolkits and things like that, it's been really good for me. It gives you a wider way of thinking, and I think that's the biggest change after doing the degree from working as a sort of unqualified, alternatively qualified worker.
It gave me a lot of confidence. So I got to try lots of new things at the time in the apprenticeship, so I kind of got experience of holding my own child in need plans. I had a lot of support throughout it all. So when I became newly qualified, I felt more confident in what I was doing and I knew what I was doing. So I felt quite excited, to be honest, to then start as a newly qualified.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and that was something that kind of quite early doors on the ASYE, my PMA kind of outlined the importance of continue that learning into and embed it into your day-to-day practice, because if you're not expected to write an assignment around a particular theory or use a particular reflective model, you perhaps won't think about that day to day. We should be, and as workers we will be, but you don't always have a reason to necessarily document that or write about it or make a point of naming it for a supervision. But it's something that was embedded all the way through the ASYE is just really kind of continued professional development, I think, for us, keeping ourselves relevant with the most kind of relevant social work theories or models and methods, and it's just something to make sure that we don't fall into the bad habit of just ignore it because uni is over, because it is an important part of our kind of continued development, and it is something, obviously I've just finished the ASYE, it is something that we've kind of tried to embed it at least just in a social work monthly meeting, so we've got that opportunity to keep going, but it was a different way of using, I think, theories and models rather than having to do it in an assignment base. You now do it during a case discussion, kind of supervision, so just utilise it differently, but yeah.